Hi, welcome to Amford Advocacy Media. You're watching the Journey Series video podcast. I'm Mark,
And I'm Crystal.
and today's guest is Mandy Hatter, and she's going to talk to us about her journey. Hi,
Hello.
Mandy.
Hey,
Hi,
Hi.
how's it going?
it's going good. And I hope you both are well.
Yeah,
Thank
doing
you.
well.
Good.
So, it's pretty much up to you where you want to start. Go ahead and start wherever you
Okay.
wherever you feel like.
So I guess that I'll just start at the beginning. So in 2008, my disabilities really began just grabbing a foothold in my life. I had an allergic reaction to sulfa that caused bunch of things to go wrong at one time. It caused autoimmune disorders, diabetes, high blood pressure. I was in the hospital for 10 days. And then all of a sudden, I started getting everything under the sun. I was finally diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And at a point in 2012, I had to put myself through school while I was dealing with the different disabilities. And my thought was, oh, I can just power through everything. But the problem was that there was a lot of walking, a lot of concentration, and I kept bucking the idea that I needed help with things. So, with all the fluorescent lights and using my eyes for reading and computer work and everything all the time, my vision started blurring and I wasn't able to see very well. And so I actually had to have a disability plan with the university that I was going to and get a screen reader and a whole bunch of different agreements with the professors, like being able to wear sunglasses and a baseball cap in class and having a little bit more time on walking between classes, because eventually I had to use a cane everywhere that I went. And there were times that I had so much pain from the fibromyalgia in my leg that I actually had to wear a walking cast. And so it was one of those things where I was just learning about how my disabilities affected my life. It really hadn't set in, oh my gosh, I have a disability. It was just like, I've got this thing, I got to work around, and just kept trying to put it off in my head. And then I got to my final year in college and I was playing freeze tag of all things, and they had just redone the gym floor, and my foot stuck to the floor when I was running, and side by side dislocation, and suddenly I am partially paralyzed in my right leg. And the difference of 5 seconds, and I am in a wheelchair for 8 months and cannot move my right leg, had drop foot, and that's something that I'm dealing with now for the rest of my life. I had to have 3 surgeries on my leg, and still I had the rest of my schooling to go through. So I was stubborn. I'm like, I'm not taking a break. I am finishing this. I've missed a lot of my kids' younger years. I don't want to miss anymore. I want to get to the point where I can get a job and move on with this. A wheelchair isn't going to stop me. And so I got myself through the rest of school and I got a job. And my very first year back, I tripped over a student, uh, I was walking around with a cane at that point in time, but I tripped over a student and I got a concussion, and I was out for the rest of the school year from January through June. And then from then on, that was my first concussion. And from then on, I was dealing with vision problems, comprehension issues, not being able to do simple math on 1 + 1 and all of that. So I had to take the time off, because how in the world is somebody going to be able to watch after your kid or to teach them anything if they can't even comprehend how to do it themselves? So it was really hard for me to humble myself and to say, I literally can't do this. And I was going to different doctors all the time. I had 4 to 5 appointments that I had to drive into town for a week. And finally I was able to get back to work with the help of vocation rehab, and they were absolutely wonderful. And went through the entire classroom trying to figure out, okay, we need to make sure this is better, we need to make sure this lighting is dimmer, that we need to turn off half of the lights because you can handle if they're in the back of the room. So, just different things that they thought of that helped me to get through the day, but didn't affect other people like you would think that it would. And so things were going okay. And then I got my first cancer. So I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And so that was in my 3rd year of teaching. And I was like, okay, I have to take the time to take care of myself. And I quit my job, and I had 3 surgeries that summer. And I was getting ready to go back to work that fall. They had gotten all the cancer, and I was getting ready to go back to work as a substitute teacher because I needed to give myself time. And I was all certified, I was ready to go, and the day before I was to start school and to be available for teachers, I was in a motorhome wreck, and I was thrown from the dining area over to the kitchen cabinet area and hit my right temple.
Oh, goodness.
And so it was a severe concussion. I could hardly see. Everything was extremely blurry, to where the room was spinning, and my ears were ringing. I couldn't really hear very well. All I remember when I woke up was I was sitting in the middle of the floor with the dining room table leg in my hand, waving it around like I was Harry Potter. And so I uh I made sure that my kids were okay, and then when that adrenaline stopped pumping, my kids were okay, they were taken off somewhere safe. I realized that, oh, wait, it wasn't just that I was stunned, there's actually something wrong. And then I felt like I needed to go to sleep for a very long time. So I was checked out and diagnosed with post-concussive disorder, and all of a sudden I can't work in 3 years, and I could not work for 3 years. And things were not getting better. They, in fact, were getting worse. And my fatigue was just horrible. And I couldn't eat, and I was getting up later and later in the day. And all of these awful symptoms started piling up on me. And so I was going to the doctor all the time. Different doctors. I went to all the different kinds of specialists I can even possibly think
Yeah.
of. because they
Mm.
couldn't pinpoint what was going on. And that was when I was diagnosed with my paraganglioma tumor. And and that was found totally by accident, which, come to find out, that's something that happens a lot with that one because they don't look specifically for it. What my cancer doctor called it was the unicorn of all tumors, that doctors are taught about it, but they never see it. And so it's mythical, like a magical unicorn. So they're always told to not expect that that would be it, and that that's basically never the diagnosis. And the way that they were able to guarantee that that's what I had was I had to have a biopsy. And so that it it was quite a defeating feeling. At that point, I was already going through my application of trying to get disability, and disability wasn't responding well. I'd already been going through the process for 2 to 3 years, and even though I had all of these other things, chronic migraines, fibromyalgia, the type 2 diabetes, the issues with walking, the partial paralysis, none of that was getting accepted. And so I was already panicking, going, how in the world am I going to be able to support myself and be a participating member of the society? I can't even pay $500 of bills to keep my electricity on, you know. And so that was an exaggeration. That was like cell phone electricity and phone. That would have been panicking. But anyway.
I was like, I thought I had
Whoops.
problems.
Yeah, that's only $200. Yeah. Okay, but
Yeah, it's funny. Somehow the electricity company has convinced us it's only 200.
yeah, I
No,
know,
no.
Like
right?
that's
200
acceptable.
200 is way over, never mind.
Yeah.
A totally different conversation. Go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
But I mean, even so, I couldn't cover the $200 that I have for an electric bill. And
Right.
that's with my electricity off the majority of the time. So,
Right.
it's so weird. But so, I was already in that panic mode, and then to find out I had another cancer, and it was very hard to treat, and it was something that affected my blood sugars and my blood pressure to where they were insanely high. And so I had the tumor removed, and it's something that can come back at any time, and it can spread to other areas. It's not something that I'm worrying about right now. Right now, it's settled. And right now, I am cancer free, and I'm leaving that in that box. And so when I had that removed, things started leveling out. I started getting more energy. I started being able to do things like walk across my property and to my neighbor's house, which is only like 150 yards away. And being able to walk on semi uneven ground, and being able to get up in the morning at a regular time, being able to sleep at night more than 1 hour. I was down to sleeping about 3 to 4 hours a week because I literally could not sleep no matter what I did right before that was taken care of. So it felt so good to feel somewhat normal. And I was finally able to make sure that my teaching license was renewed and that I was going to be a substitute teacher. And I've been able to work some up to 2 days a week uh, as a substitute teacher since September. And so that has been so satisfying. But even that, it's almost like I get punished for doing that because
Right.
end of June, early July, I was accepted into disability because of that last tumor. And they were like, okay, you're on full disability. We're going to reevaluate in about 6 months to a year. And you can't work more than what you would earn. Okay, I said that wrong. You can't you can't earn more than $1,300 a month. And so when I was hired, then I had to be very clear to the schools, I cannot earn more than this. So there needs to be a stopgap in the system where it's like, okay, you've worked more than this many days, you're done. Because I can keep track of it. But if I've got teachers constantly calling me and saying, I've got 5 days in a row that I'm not going to be here, that's taken almost the entire amount that I can work in a month. And so, I'm happy to work. I'm happy to be there. But my exhaustion level gets so bad if I work over 2 days a week. And it's not just limited by the amount of money that I would get from disability. It's limited by how exhausted that I get. So if I work more than that 2 days a week, I start to stumble over my words, I stutter, I slur my speech, I start forgetting what I'm supposed to say. If I'm talking to someone and answering questions, then it reduces the amount of workability that I have. So, my brain is processing harder at that time. I'm pausing a lot right now. I'm sorry. My brain is processing harder at that time to answer the specific question or to stay on topic. And that's something that I struggle a lot with. I can talk without somebody interrupting me for quite a while, but I'll be drifting on topics here, there. It's like a connect the dots picture. You're all over the place. And it's not linear where you're sitting here and going, okay, I'm talking about building a snowman. I'm out in the snow and I'm getting the top ball and I'm getting the middle ball ready and I'm getting the bottom ball. Then I put the middle ball on the. No, I'll be like, okay, so I built a snowman. Oh, I built the middle ball. Wait, no, I had to roll the bottom one. What? Wait, bottom? Biggest? No. It's just like,
Yes.
okay. I have a hard time trying to describe to someone without exaggerating like that. But that's what it feels like inside my brain. Like I took all the notes for everything, clipped up the words, and I just have the little words on each individual piece of paper, and I threw them up in the air, and then I tried to make a sentence. And just by picking it up out of the sky. That's what
That's
it
not
feels like.
really exaggerating. That's more like
That's
I don't know that.
realistic, I guess.
Yeah. No, I get what you're trying to say, but it's not exaggeration. You're not trying to, embellish or anything or
Yeah. I guess to us, when we've experienced it, it's not an exaggeration. To other people, it feels like an exaggeration, I guess is what I'm going for.
Yeah, I get
Because it's like, oh, it couldn't be that bad. And it's like, yep. Right now, my head feels like a snow globe and somebody just took it and went
Yeah.
and shook it up. But that's why it's so nice, like during these interviews, that every once in a while, if I'm talking to you, you go, okay, well, we were on this topic. Can we talk about that? And I'm like, oh yeah, we can do that. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's simple because I've been there, in that situation you're dealing with, where there's so much drama and so much situational stuff going on around you that's preventing you from being able to stay on task and, talk about the topics you need even still sometimes. And I'm not sure. I think mine has to do with also the ataxia, the brain fog stuff. Sometimes I'll be talking about something and I won't be able to, I won't find the word that I need, stuff like that. So it's a little bit different, but the two combined or make it challenging. So
Yeah.
And
I have word find a lot too. And so I get you on that. Yes, Mark, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
I
interrupt.
was gonna say I experienced that too, but I guess mine's a little bit different. I mean, I still have difficulty though sometimes finding words, or maybe I'll be talking and using a
yeah,
different saying something different than what I mean to.
yeah. That's why I don't think mine has to do with the brain injury. That was 20, 25, 24 years ago. You know, I really do think because we have the same thing attacking it, I think it has to do more with just not being able to find the words or being stuck,
Yeah.
So
Well, and I'm trying to think about how to say this part. I know that um I've been through a lot of different brain therapies and things like this, and I'm sure that you have too, where I know that if I hadn't had those trainings, those therapies, and learned the different tools that help me, that I would still be dealing with a lot of that stuff. I still do deal with a lot of it, but I'm preparing for the instances where those things happen. So while I notice that things are happening, then I'm using my tools to help me get through it.
Mm.
But in using those tools, it's taking some of my exhaustion level at the same time. And so it's not the same as if somebody else was trying to have a conversation and it just flows and comes naturally. They may not hear the way that we stutter or stumble through things or pause trying to find a word. And yet it's noticeable to us because you feel that. For me, it's like a pressure. Things get really tight and it feels almost like on a verge of a headache, and it gets really muddy trying to think through that and to find the word or the phrase that I'm looking for. I'm trying to make it something relatable, and right now I can't think of anything. But it's very hard to explain. And it's not that I'm trying to put myself in a different category or people that deal with this situation in a different category and say, no, you just don't understand. You could never understand. That's not it. It's that it's so different from I walked into a room wanting to get a glass of water from the kitchen, and I forgot that I wanted a glass of water. That would be a normal thing that anybody could go through. And I will walk through the room and go, I forgot what I was doing. Forgot is probably not the right word. It's like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm here. It's like my entire being just blanks and I'm just there. And so there's times like that, and then there's other times like I'm forgetting everything, and I'll have had my keys and I set them down right next to me, and I'll still be standing there, and it's like I had something in my hand. What did I have in my hand? I don't even know what I'm looking for. And so while the other person is like, I set my keys down somewhere, I'm like, why is my hand empty? So it's still very hard for anybody to understand, but then you have people that just pop up and go, oh, you're not dealing with much, I deal with that all the time. And so I find it frustrating when people relate, like talking to you guys, when people relate to it and you know that they've actually experienced it. That's different in the respect that it's so hard finding somebody that, well, at least it seemed like when I first was diagnosed with this, that it's so hard to find somebody that actually literally understands that, you know, it's not just a fleeting thing. It's something that happens all the time. And it was so nice meeting you guys and being able to talk to you. It was just relieving because that was the first conversation earlier this fall, I think, when you contacted me.
Yeah, that was September.
Wow. That seems crazy.
I know.
But it was so nice having somebody that I could talk to, and there was complete and total understanding. And yet that sadness of somebody understands, and because I don't want people to understand. I don't want people to go
Right.
through this.
Right. No.
Yeah.
It's
So it's nope. Thought just went. Never mind.
That's okay. I was gonna say that when people can't understand the concept of what we're dealing with, I think about it on a psychological level. So many people have been told and stuck in thinking you have to pretend like this isn't going on, pretending like this is not happening. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any, you're crazy. You know, that positive, negative, positive, wait, what toxic positivity. Sorry, but
No, you're fine.
you know, but it's kind of like right now where people are realizing that they're not crazy. These are situational things that happen with a lot of people. Just so many people who have been faking it or have to live in a world where they have to show people that, oh, that's not really a thing. I'll just hide it down here and I'll just, pretend like everything's fine, So I don't think that it's as what am I trying to say? I don't think it's as
Rare?
prevalent as
not understood as what you're saying. I think it's just been buried for so long. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I do believe that you're right on that. Even now, I get fearful about somebody in my professional world finding my YouTube channel or different places where I talk openly about my disabilities because, you know, are they going to discredit me as a teacher because I have different disabilities? I was starting to combine two words together. I struggle with that a lot.
What is
And
that called? There's a word for that.
I don't know.
I forget what it's called. Mark, do you know?
on the
There's an
top.
actual phrase that, and it's in the dictionary. I can't think of it.
Gosh,
Anyway,
now I want to
go
look
ahead.
it
I'm
up and
sorry.
find it. That's okay. Okay, that I have different disability. I'm amazed that I found my topic again.
Yeah.
But if they find out about different disabilities, are people that have buildings that have staircases going to say, oh, well, we're worried about you falling, we don't want you to teach here, or well, we don't really want you teaching in the higher grades because we don't think that you'll be able to comprehend how to do the different classes or the lessons. And the thing is that I only work in the positions that I am extremely confident that I will have no issues in. And I only work on the days that I know I won't have issues. So it's something where I know how to gauge my abilities from day to day. And this is something that I was talking to you about earlier of spoon theory that my counselor and my therapist were talking about. Yeah. So spoon theory is something where every single person, abled or disabled, on any type of ability, is able to get the same amount of spoons every day. Now, a spoon, it equals a certain amount of energy that you have to complete a task. And you only have a certain amount of spoons every day to be able to complete all of your tasks. So everybody has to gauge how much energy that they have. But some tasks for some people take more or less spoons than others. So for someone in the normal category, getting up and getting ready, changing their clothes, eating breakfast, that process of getting ready would only take one spoon. Whereas somebody that's dealing with different disabilities, I'll use myself as an example, just getting up out of bed, I have to do a certain amount of stretches before I get up out of bed. And I have to take a different route to sit up because my leg gets in the way or what have you. So just the process of getting out of bed takes 2 spoons, and then getting up and doing any bathroom stuff, that takes 2 more spoons, and then getting dressed, taking care of my hair and everything takes another one. So they're 1 spoon, the norm, compared to my 5. Now we still have the same, let's say 25 spoons total for the entire day, but I just spent 5 just getting ready to go out the door in the morning. And so it's a really good comparison, uh a visual or an explanation, I think, to show people that there are differences in the abilities and we are trying our absolute best, but our different activities, even though we're doing the same things, take different amounts of energy. And it's not the same for everyone. And while people realize that it's not the same for everyone, um sometimes you just don't think about it if you don't have to deal with it. And that's totally understandable. I totally get it. I'm not putting anybody down for that. But if you're dealing with a supervisor that's never had a disability on their own, or somebody that is in a position like in Social Security when you're applying to disability, or any of those programs where you're looking for help, then they don't have experience with disability. They don't understand how much of a difference that there is energy wise that's put in between what they've experienced and what you've experienced. Then they're wondering, why is it so hard for you to do paperwork? Why is it so hard for you to do the number choices on the phone answering system?
Mhm.
And I cannot say how many times that I have hung up on those phone answering systems and gone, I cannot keep track of press 1 for this, press 2 for the. Okay. How many different times did we just have to go through that? I think there was one that they had like 5 different sections that you had to go through. So you press 1 once and then it's comes up with another list and I'm like, I'm in a panic. And then all of a sudden you end up at a dead end and it says, oh, well, goodbye. I've been trying this for a half hour now. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So, it gets to the point where while they think they're trying to help by making things okay, I'm looking for the word again. By trying to pare things down into small sections, sometimes
Yeah, they're
doing
trying
that.
to organize it, but it's actually getting cluttered and overwhelming trying to, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like I wish that businesses in that respect would have somebody that they could contact, like even the vocational therapist or somebody that they could contact to help them set those things up,
Mhm.
because it um it would make things so much easier if they didn't just assume that they were helping. And again, the fact that they're trying, I commend them for that. I'm trying to recognize the efforts that people put into it. And but it is still frustrating when you're in this situation and going, oh my
For
gosh,
sure.
they're trying to help me again.
Well, usually the way it seems to work with in many areas is that they build a system for everyone that's able to
Mhm.
just, we'll call them normal. They build these
Yeah.
systems and then it's up to you if you have a disability to fit into that system. They're not going to build a system for disabled people generally,
Right. Right.
which would make the most sense because it's going to work for everybody.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And it would be nice if it did. And recognizing, I mean, this brings me to my next topic on it. Um the different, oh gosh, I am having a lot of problems with words today. the different
Do you need to
assistance
take a break?
devices. Oh no, I don't think it would make any difference. I
Okay,
it, for me, if I take a break, then I'll just forget which direction I was going in.
okay,
And so it doesn't really work for me,
okay.
unfortunately. But thank you for the offer.
You're welcome.
But different assistance devices. Now again, they're trying to help. So I think I mentioned this in our last interview with a group on our roundtable, but when I was in a wheelchair, I had difficulties when they very first came out with those bumps right at the cutouts and the sidewalks, because it really helped when you were going down, but when you were trying to go back up the other side, then it stopped me from going up because you lost that momentum trying to go up the ramp. And so
Right,
then you're constantly having to go up these little inclines.
yeah.
Now, I bless them, they did a great thing on keeping people from in wheelchairs from just sliding out into traffic. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
But just because it helps one person doesn't mean that it's not going to be a stumbling block for another
Right.
person. And one other thing that I ran into was when I started being able to walk and I was walking across those and I couldn't do uneven ground. And all of a sudden, the entire cutout is covered in these bumps. And it's like, how do I get up here? I don't know how. So
Right.
it's very interesting. And I think that anybody, any ability, whatever, could find something to complain about any assistance
Mhm.
device. And so, yes.
Can I ask a question real quick? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the cutouts and what do you
Um,
mean?
so when somebody is crossing the street,
Mhm.
there is the sidewalk and it
Are you
has
talking
that
about
ledge.
the yellow and white
Yes.
circles? Okay,
Yes. Yes.
okay,
So when you're on the sidewalk and then here's the street, the cutout is the ramp going down.
okay, gotcha.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, not a problem. I'm sorry. I didn't clarify. So but really, I don't think I
I'm
had anything
sorry.
else I was trying to say. No, I think I was trying to fill in a spot that didn't
Mhm.
exist.
Okay,
um
any questions, Mark?
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing all that, Mandy. I know that was a lot. So, like all that stuff that happened, the fibromyalgia issues and the chronic pain and the cancers, did that all crop up in this? How long was that? Did that go on?
uh the entire process was from uh really 2008 up until this last year. So
Yeah.
8 to 22, we've got, yeah, oh, math, 14 years.
Wow.
so but a lot of it showed up since 2015.
Mm,
Right.
So
That's a lot.
it was really the last 7 years
Mm,
that things started getting diagnosed and nailed down as far
mm,
as this is what it is
mm.
and this is how we should handle it. My first cancer was 2019 and then this last one was 22. So That was just the last 3 years. So I struggled a lot with loss of identity, trying to define myself by this abled versus disabled level, and that doesn't make sense. You don't defining myself on how much ability that I have put me into such a narrow box that I felt like I had lost everything, every piece of myself.
Mhm.
And at first, when I had my first concussion, I couldn't do any of my art. I couldn't sing because I wasn't able to put my words together well. I was an author and I couldn't write. I couldn't do math and I couldn't teach. So I was stuck at home
Mhm.
and doing basically nothing every day because
Mm.
I couldn't watch TV even. I couldn't read. So I was just staring at a wall all day long because everything was too stimulating. It would
Mhm.
cause the migraines or cause my vision to disappear or any one
Mhm.
of those different things. And any light from outside was overwhelming.
Mhm.
And so I constantly had the shades down. The room was just dark. And I wasn't able to participate in almost anything, just regular family life wise. And so I was very self-destructive. Um and basically at that point just felt like, okay, everybody needs to participate in life without me because I'm just a drag on
Mhm.
everyone else. I'm just keeping everyone back.
Mhm.
And I still struggle with some of that mindset. Um, I have bad days. I have chronic depression now. I have chronic anxiety and um, a bunch of things that I'm working through, but I'm working through them. And I have conquered some of them and some of I'm still working through. And the thing is, I never gave up. I didn't
Mhm.
let it just trounce me down into the ground and say, I'm not a person anymore. Why am I even here? And now I can't say I didn't ask, why am I here?
Right, right,
But I didn't let it conquer me. And so I
right.
found one thing to
And
succeed in every day.
and the fact that you're here talking about it, that says a lot. It took, like when I was dealing with some of the same stuff and loss of self, I did a video actually last year in another group, a taxi group, called Acquired Ataxia, explaining acquired ataxia. And it's on YouTube. But at that time, though, I watch it back at this, today, and you can definitely see my struggle to read what's on the screen, talk about what I want to talk about. I'm shaking like crazy. Well, I have tremors, I have ataxia, but often when you're doing something and it's taxing on you, your ataxia gets worse, right? Your tremors get worse. So it's very obvious to be watching that back. All the, and of course, I knew all the background things that were going on that were making all of this much, much worse, not just like with having this talk, but, and it was to help my fellow Ataxians, to help them. But at the same time, it's also, when I look back at it, it's really hard to look back at, because of that.
Right.
But I've come through, trying to figure out what I need to do to still help people, but in more of a relaxing way, and what works for me and what people I have in my, in my circle, things like
Mhm.
that. So you just have to do the same thing. You have to, make things work for you, find what, different diet, different whatever environment, different people in your circle, things like that.
Yeah.
And I know it's frustrating because it seems like it takes forever to
Yeah.
get it all, but you get it finally. And like I told you, it took me a long time to let Mark in,
Yeah.
and yeah, let him, she'll explain different pieces of me and explain how I felt about certain things and even cry about it, things like that. It took me a long time, but when you finally get to that point, that shows you a lot of, things that
Yeah.
so keep trying and move forward. You got this.
Well, and I appreciate you so much because I'm behind you on the journey a little bit, but I'm finding the same things to appreciate as well because I found a friend group that supports me as me, and they're trying to learn um how to handle all the different things that are me now, all my different abilities and disabilities. But there, I think a big thing of what somebody new in your life is trying to learn is your what to expect of your resilience. Are you going to push yourself to hurting yourself? Do they have to protect you? Do they need to stay out of your way? Do they need to, let you be you? And I said, the biggest thing that I need from someone is for them to ask me.
Mhm.
I need to be asked, do I need help?
Mhm.
Or, do I want to participate? Am I enjoying the way that I'm participating? Give me the option. Give me the right to choose, because maybe I will just tell you no a lot of the time. No, I can't do this. But being able to participate and make that decision for myself is huge. And so at the same time, though, if I ask for help and then somebody immediately tells me, no, I'm not going to help you, you need to get through that. It was really humbling to try and say I need help to begin with. You know, I
Right.
I need that support, that if I do finally get to the point where I'm saying I need your help, uh that there's at least a response that just a second, I'll be there to help, to try to help you, and or I'll help you get something to where you can, do what you're wanting to do. But um there's a lot of times, especially by people that I don't know, that they've said, no, I'm not going to reach something for you, you do it yourself, or whatever. And that that feeling of, I feel strong enough to ask for help and then being defeated, it it sort of, where am I going with this? It sort of works against you, on, or at least for me, it works against my confidence on asking somebody again. Um and so um not to say that people don't have a right to say no, just saying that that's something that it can happen. But anyways.
So, so I mean, from what I've seen, one of the big I don't know, can't think of the word now. But one of the big culprits that does that sort of thing is like the government. They'll broadcast out there that they're gonna help support people with disabilities, but then when you go to apply for something, they say stuff like, "Oh, you're not disabled, right?" Or they'll say stuff, "Okay, you need this device. Go see this expert who knows you better than you know yourself, and they judge whether you need XYZ."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I in going through the application process for disability, it's very defeating. Um being sent to doctor after doctor, where we see doctors all the time. It's not a thing where we've gotten to a point in disability where we're like, oh, well, I've not seen anybody, but I'm just guessing that this is what's wrong with me and I'm going to apply.
Yes.
I didn't just go to Goodwill and get my wheelchair. I Craigslist is my friend, but not that much. And so I find it rather insulting when I have a whole bunch of highly sought after specialists that I go to, and they won't take their word as specialists, and they send me to somebody else where they're forcing me to spend money that I don't have to go travel 2 to 3 hours to go to these other doctors that they're paying for. And then if I even breathe my opinion of, you guys aren't going to give me an actual medical opinion because you're being paid by disability to say that I'm not disabled.
Right.
And then they'll start yelling at me, saying that I'm this horrible person because I'm actually speaking the truth. I have never been. I'm sorry.
I was just saying the system is so broken. Mark and I were just talking about a general doctor that's going to give you a referral to a specialist, right?
Yeah.
But then that specialist doesn't have an opening actually. Or you go to the appointment and then they say, oh, you're late. And then you have to go back to the general doctor, get a new referral. But in the first place, if you go to one and they're not actually available, how come the general doctor doesn't know that? Why isn't there a system in place that tells the general doctor that specialist is not actually available for you? Like his experience was the specialist is not taking new patients. Why didn't the general doctor know that?
No, I don't know. I've run across that many times too.
Yeah, several.
Well, it's like something that I told you before. I'm sure that you've been through this as well, where I have a cognitive therapist that I went to. And for me, I would think that anything that dealt with memory, they'd be the most understanding. And I went to them constantly. They were 2 of my appointments a week. there was another doctor that I went to that their acronyms were only one letter off of each other. And mind you, I was having issues with comprehension and processing. And so when my appointment thing would come across saying, you have an appointment with this building, then I would go to that one and it was the wrong one. And the other one was actually 2 blocks away. And by the time that I got there, I was 3 to 5 minutes late. And they're yelling at me, even though I had been on the phone on the way over because I had to be driven places. I would be yelled at that it was my fault that I couldn't remember, that I needed to set up this reminder, that reminder, this reminder. If I had all these different reminders, I got confused. And I was confused anyways with the one that I had. And so then I had to set it up so that it wasn't only reminders for me, it was reminders for other people in my life. And so then here I have 2 to 3 people that are remembering things for me, that have reminders going off on their phone and calendar reminders to get me to one appointment. And so talk about making me feel even more inconveniencing to people because of that. But here it was so hard to get into these appointments and feeling like I'm inconveniencing people, and then being told, if you miss one more appointment or you inconvenience us like this again, you're not going to be our patient anymore. And we're the only ones in the city. So,
and then can we talk about if you're disabled and you're on limited income, right? And then you go to all these specialists that you were recommended to, or you were supposed to have referrals to. But like you're talking about the whole scheduling thing, if you don't get there on time or go to the wrong one and you're 2 minutes late, 3 minutes late or whatever, then their response to that is, we're going to have to reschedule you. So we're going to need you to pay the $25, $30 rescheduling fee.
Yeah. And for this, not only the $25, $30, there was this one time I was charged $125 for an appointment that I couldn't go to. And the aggravation with that is that then when I did go to an appointment, I was waiting 25, 30 minutes for it to even start. And so I asked them one time, it's like, you don't even get me in for the appointment for 25 to 30 minutes.
Right.
Why does it matter if I'm 2 minutes late? I was in the parking lot, physically here at the building, and it took me that long to get into the building because of my disabilities. Why can't you take me in if that's all that it takes? You have a computer that is logging me into everything. If the system isn't working, fix it.
Right.
I have to at home, it should not be as difficult as they make it out to be. And that's something that I remember from when I was a kid, where everything was done on paper, and we would go into doctor's appointments and the receptionist is just like, okay, I'll just tell the doctor that, you were 2 minutes late and it's not a problem, and just goes tell the doctor, oh, they're here now. I'd rather go back to the paper thing, But I understand it's annoying for them. I'm so sorry. And I know that seems lackluster, but this is my cognitive therapist complaining about me forgetting
Mm,
or having memory issues, and then charging me extra because I have memory issues, then putting it in their file that they had to get rid of me as a patient because I wasn't able to be there to my appointments on time. And it wasn't even all the time. It was like once a month that I would make a mistake and I would still show up, but
mm,
and um then they not only did that, but they sent notifications to other people around the area that,
mm.
oh, well, this is a bad patient. You probably shouldn't accept her. And it's like, I still have to get care. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are the ones that let me down because you're supposed to help me through this, not make it harder.
Yeah.
And so sorry, I get a little.
It's alone. It's okay. I'm
But
sorry you
yeah.
have to deal with that. It's
Oh,
so
thankfully.
frustrating.
Thankfully, it's not really an issue anymore because I'm down to the physical
Well, for
type stuff.
us, I mean, but there are so many people that are struggling with that, you know,
Yes.
and we
The
have to tell these stories and be able to speak up so it stops happening. All this gaslighting and toxic stuff quits happening. And systems like that, they're supposed to be helping us, not making things more difficult.
Exactly. And the other thing is that I find very sad is that the eye therapist in the area that has to do with concussion syndrome and the cognitive therapists don't exist anymore. They took them away because they weren't benefiting the other groups that they were working with financially as much as other areas. And insurance didn't really want to work with them because they couldn't really prove different stuff. So here people are still needing the help, but they can't get it because the only programs that were in the area aren't here anymore. So it's very frustrating because it's something that brain injuries are something that are all over the place and are extremely serious, and there's nothing out there in a lot of places to take care of it. And so then not only is the stuff expensive, but then you have to travel even farther to get help. And so a lot of
Just
people are having
more
to get
money out of
hotel
our
rooms.
pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you have to get a plane ticket and a hotel room to go to a doctor appointment. Are you kidding
Mm. So, Mark, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say, back to the point Mandy made about your cognitive therapist calling people in the other health professionals in the area and informing them that you were a bad patient. Sad reality is that those other health professionals would probably take the word of that doctor over you
me?
because, well, they're a doctor. They know, you know, they they
Yeah.
have this certain credibility factor, even though they could be, you know, they could be lying or biased in some way. You know?
Yeah. And like when you are released from a job or quit or whatever, the employer is not supposed to legally be able to spread any negative news to somebody that calls you for a referral or whatever. I feel it should be the same way for doctors. I feel they shouldn't be able to put that sort of stuff in their doctor's notes that you know, some doctors believe that some disabilities are imagined. And I know that fibromyalgia is one of those that, you know, a lot of doctors disagree with. And I had some doctors put in their notes that this is all in her head. And it's amazing how that one little sentence worked against me when I was trying to uh get disability, to get help. And you know, the thing is, disability is not just monetary help, but it's help with getting medical insurance and um being able to get the help that I need so that I can be a participating member of society. Unfortunately, I run into a lot of people that are sitting there saying that I'm a drain on society and that I shouldn't even be here because I'm just a burden on the taxes of the uh regular participating people in the work system. And that comment of see where you would be if all the rest of us decided that we were going to just say no, we're not going to pay for taxes that support the disabled and you know things like that. And it's rough because a lot of the times the people that are saying that are ones that aren't affected or around people that have disabilities at all. And so again, it comes right down to that whole thing of if they don't have experience with it, then they won't understand why we need help to get how am I wording this? We need help to get through things in order to participate in the first place.
Right.
And it's not that we're sitting here and saying, I just want to be a bump on the log doing nothing. A lot of us are sitting here going, I am doing anything that I can to be a participating member of the society, to be able to do what I felt was a goal in the workforce from the time that I was little or now or whatever my reimagined idea of a participating person is. And I need some steps put up for me to get there instead of the constant stumbling blocks or having the steps taken away while I'm stepping on them. But I think that's the thing that's frustrating me right now is I felt like I was getting to the point where I was succeeding. I was getting to the point where I was participating again. I was working the 1 to 2 days a week. And it wasn't everything, but it was at least something. But as soon as I got to that point, then the program started contacting me and threatening to take it away. They're like, well, you're getting to this amount. We're going to start taking your money away. So it's down to this amount. And it's like, now it's down to below what my bills were again. So I'm barely keeping my head above water. But if I work more, then it goes, the support from them goes down more. And it's a frustrating vicious circle because it doesn't match. It's not at the point where they've supported enough to be able to get to the point where you can work and pay off all the bills that are just like right here. It's always keeping you barely under that line. And my hands didn't make any sense right there. I'm so sorry.
No, it didn't. It totally did. It's just, I guess, to help. I guess, like, so that system is definitely there, to help. But at the same time, it's there to help you. So you can make this much, but we don't want you to have anything extra or anything else. So we're gonna get afraid of you making what we can give you or more, because we don't want you to succeed. We don't want you to make more than what we can give you. So we're going to cap it off below the point. So, so if you start making a little bit, right at the line or just a little bit over, they just cut it off.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's difficult because it would be nice to feel like I could even sort of breathe and not be stressed about that too. Um but a lot of the time I find that I'm getting to the point where I start to relax and then I'm just immediately slapped down and go, no, you're not allowed to feel okay.
Yeah.
But uh I I it is exhausting, and I do find that because of that, I still struggle with my identity and negative self-talk, not putting myself down all the time. Um so I find it even more important that I surround myself with supportive people and take the negative people out of my life, the negative influences out. And if I don't have a supportive work system, that I'm not working with them, because if I'm constantly struggling to get support, then I'm not
There's that
ever
energy. Yeah.
exactly. You're constantly going to be fighting for that energy, and it's going to constantly drain you down further and further. And
Yeah.
you need to have something that will build you up. And there's only so much that you can do on your own. And, I tried to do it on my own. And all I found was that I exhausted myself so much that I made myself more sick than I was to begin with. And so, there are those fears, like you were talking about earlier, about reaching out and finding our people, finding our chosen family or our chosen friends, or who we need to be able to support us, or that we feel that we're helping them, the give and take on that. But this process has taught me that that is just as important as building myself up and having my confidence, because even when I'm not confident, they are. They're able to be there for me and be able to talk me through such devastating times that I
Yeah.
can't even count all of them. And be it doctors or new news about the different disabilities that I have, or even the idea of a panic about a possibility that might happen, just a reminder that, that hasn't happened yet. And so it's like I said, the whole process is exhausting, but if you have the right people around you, it makes so much of a difference.
Mm.
So while it hurts to let go of those people that are harmful, which I
Mhm.
find interesting because it hurts to have them around too, but
Mm.
it is so relieving when that negativity is gone and you feel like you can breathe. And so I really love these long distance friendships,
Mm.
and how we have this ability now to be able to talk and share and be able
For
to.
this minute.
Want to get your Minnie? We gotta take a break.
Okay, yeah. Is there anything else that you guys had?
I don't. I think we have some guests that are they have a lot to share. Others that don't. So we just kind of Mark, was there anything you wanted
Well,
to?
I mean, so something just happened, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I'm not saying we have to talk about it, but maybe it's something that bothers you. Um, so somebody walked in, right, and just whatever the person did to talk to me, and I've gotten this before where the assumption is because I'm not holding down a job where I'm getting paid, or because I'm disabled, therefore that equals that I'm not actually doing work.
Yeah.
Dealt with that many times.
Yes. And the
And
thing
you
is,
get
even
it gets sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. You first. I'm good.
No, it gets to the point where you don't talk about
Come on, maybe we could, sorry to interrupt, but maybe we could frame this so it gets a bit easier to edit. So we don't just run into conversation. Be I don't know.
yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah,
Mark, we need some context to start out.
okay. Let's start over. Okay. So Mandy, I was interested to, or we were interested to know, do you have any sort of situation where you've run into where maybe people don't take you seriously or take your ability to work seriously because you have a disability, and they don't think, like, they basically think you're retired or something?
Yes, actually. I have a couple of those situations at home as well as in the workforce with the situation where I am a substitute teacher. I have people make assumptions that, oh, well, she hadn't been feeling well, so she's most likely not feeling well still, so we just won't call her. And then I find out about it later that, here I've been without work for a month and a half and haven't been offered any jobs. Come to find out, there were like 3 jobs that showed up just this last week that nobody thought that I would be well enough to do, and they didn't even ask. And so, there's that. And then there's also issues where I'm doing interviews like on here, and all of a sudden somebody will pop through the door. And it's interesting because even though in and I am positive that my people are going to watch this video, and so I'm just saying this as an example, okay? But even though they know that I do live streams and that I'm doing things that benefit me in my art business or in teaching, they still pop through the door and start talking immediately, as if I'm just sitting in my room doing nothing. And I
Just waiting
think,
for them to come by, right?
yeah, I think it might just be a thing where, excuse me, I have the hiccups, where I'm at home and I'm in my room, and so it's just normal to just open the door and say, hey. And just that mental difference maybe of, if somebody's in the room, they're obviously not doing anything very important, and I'd prefer a knock, but that's beyond the point.
Well, the assumption that just because someone is disabled and you hold precedence over them because you're not disabled, thinking that they can invade your space and you're less than, so they have permission to treat you how they want to treat you,
Yeah.
says a lot about them, not you. You're doing what you need to be doing, helping people,
Mhm.
or well, you're helping people too at school, but but in the same respect, just because we don't look like you, talk like you, move like you, whatever, does not mean we're less than and you need to respect us less. You
Exactly.
give the same respect of knocking lightly, whatever, calling before you come to the door, texting. We have cell phones, people use them. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Can you
I
tell
mean,
I've dealt with this several times?
mhm. And it's hard when you have to repeat yourself multiple times on, well, it's easier for me to text than it is to talk on the phone, because being able to hear and process the conversation is harder. And so then I text and people don't read the whole message and make assumptions on what I said in the first little
Yeah,
part.
right.
And it's like, no, that's not what I said at all. Can you read the whole thing? And so then that's difficult when you feel like your conversations are being rushed, and you're not being fully paid attention to. And the thing about space, a lot of time I find that I need to be in a totally different building for people to take notice that I'm doing something that you need to ask permission to interrupt. And a lot of the time mine is writing or art now. And it's not something that I do well just being interrupted, because it's breaking a whole thought process. And once you interrupt my thought process, then I have a hard time getting it back. And so, that's one other thing that I have a hard time in regular conversations, is that if somebody's constantly stopping me in like mid-sentence, then they're not letting me finish my whole thought. Eventually I just give up. I'm just like, whatever. And they're like, no, continue on with your topic. I'm like, I don't even remember what the topic was. So, and in no way, shape, or form, or any of the times that, we overlapped here, one of those instances, that's not what I mean. And so, but they get frustrated with me. They reserve the right to get frustrated with me because I can't remember anymore. It's like, well, why not? I had something that I had to say, and then you should have been able to add to it. And it's like, well, I was, but then you thought yours was more important. So that's where we are. I don't even remember at this point. I tried 3 times.
But then it's an issue of that same person being able to come back and say, well, so your thought was more important than mine,
Yeah.
So it's kind of, and then them framing you as being the problem.
Yeah.
That you were the one doing the word salad. Because they thought that their whatever they were saying was more important. Then you lost track of what you were gonna say. So then when you do try to pick up the conversation, it turned into word salad. Then you're accused of doing word salad when you're not, that wasn't your intention.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then they're like, okay, well, in a later conversation, well, you never told me what your opinion was. And it's like, well, I tried. It's not that I never tried to voice it. I tried to voice it, but things happen. And so but okay, just a second. Rewind. I don't know why I did the sound. Okay, I want to skip to the invisibility topic because I think I'm getting fatigue, and so my brain is sort of skipping.
Time out for a second. It's getting a little late for us, so let's make it maybe the last thing, and then we'll do the closing. Is that good, Crystal?
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah, I think that's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so I guess we can just how should we do this?
Yeah, see, we do the same thing where we start a conversation, and we get tired, so we have a limit where we have to say, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
So this is working out good because you're at the same point. So
yeah. Yeah, because that's one of the things that people don't see. And that's sort of where I was going, is that when people can't see a disability, they don't think it's a disability. They just think that, oh, well, you're just tired. And a lot of the time I'll have people doubt that I actually have a disability placard and say, well, you just took your mom's or grandma's or whatever, and look at my face and they're like, you're too young for that, or you're walking just fine, or what have you. And they're like, no, you don't have an actual disability. And that goes along with the thought process stuff, or fibromyalgia, or seeing badly. Nobody can see that. They can't judge what your ability is by how they look at you at that point. And people really struggle with that. And it's not only those that are able that look at you, but I feel that, at least in my situation, I struggle with it too, because I want people to understand that I'm having issues and I feel like I'm obvious, but it's not. And so trying to understand their side where they don't understand what's going on, it's something that I'm having to be aware of as time goes on. So it's a constant learning experience for me on how to prepare other people and to inform them of how I want to be treated or respected or included in everything. And so I'm learning to speak up and also to teach others in a way that they'd understand. And so
Yeah.
it's a constant learning curve.
Yep.
But
Sure.
I'm sure that you guys experience that too. And so,
Mm.
but yeah, I'm pretty much done.
Yeah, it's getting kind of late. Thank you, Mandy, for sharing your journey
Thank
with us.
Thank you. You gave me an opportunity that I just couldn't refuse. It's been great talking to you
Oh.
guys. So have a good one.
Have a
We're
good
lucky
evening.
we found you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.